here we go. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to U-Sophia, where minds meet
Great.
online. And tonight, an untamed lion here with us from all the way from the village in Manhattan. And first of all, let me introduce Benjamin Scheuer. Benjamin, it's a pleasure, and I would even say an honor having you here with us. We met in a little place right across the corner from where you live, I believe.
Dan, it's a great pleasure to be here with you.
Thank you. We met at Cornelia Street Cafe, which is kind
That's
of
right. In Greenwich Village, we met at the Cornelia Street Cafe.
Which is a place that records the village of yesteryear. Not many places like that do exist in the village anymore, no?
The Cornelia Street Cafe is a really wonderful venue. It brings a lot of music and poetry and art to the village, and I was really glad to meet you there at the Artist Salon last month. In fact, this evening after you and I see, I'm headed back to the Cornelia Street to October's Artist Salon.
Yeah. Benjamin, we met in New York, we spoke a little bit, and then I Googled you, as the kids say today, and I found out that you've been having fun with your music. So tell us a little bit about what is the part that music plays for you as a guide, not as as a profession, but as a guide, because you played at writing a musical with a very serious and basic religious intention. We'll talk about that a little bit later. You then turned around to Oscar Wilde. So is music leading you to those places, or do you take music as a partner on your trips of imagination?
The way Jihad the Musical is the show I think you're talking about came to be was I'd worked on a show when I was an undergraduate at Harvard. I worked
We are losing you now.
We are losing you, Benjamin.
And we did a presentation of the show in New York City. We thought that we were going to have a big, successful show, and we did a presentation of this other musical that we'd done while we were at Harvard in New York, and it had gone so badly, that I was with my uncle that following weekend, and in order to make me feel better, he said, well, what's the worst possible musical you could write? The worst idea. And we started laughing, and we said, well, Jihad, the musical, could not be imagined. The sign, Jihad, on a proscenium outside the theater was funny to us. And so it came from a place of cheekiness, of thinking, well, I want to do something simply because I can do it. And I wrote a song with a friend of mine that weekend. My friend's called Zoe Samuel. And we wrote a song together called I Wanna Be Like Osama. And whenever we played it for somebody, they would laugh and laugh and laugh and say, but you can't play this for anybody else. And so we played it for everyone. And it was real joy finding pleasure in...
Yeah, go ahead. We kind of lose you and we find you, which is very interesting.
Otherwise, we did our best to take that which was 100%
Benjamin, we keep losing you.
Terrorism.
Yeah.
And find the positive. Do you?
Yeah,
We
I'm
keep
afraid I
losing
don't know
you.
why. Now I'm sitting in the
Now
same
you're
place.
much better. I don't know. I mean, you come and go. No, I can see.
I don't know what to tell you. I'm sorry.
I can see your
Is there
lips.
something, Benjamin, is there something running in the background on your computer maybe? Something like...
Let me check.
Do you have
sometimes it's
Skype,
like backup
whatever you
or
have?
something that's making, because it comes in both, not all the time.
We have Val, who's joining
If I
us.
close, let me see.
If you can close everything that you have open.
I've closed everything now except for the Bing and Safari.
I would close Bing. Safari is the one that you're using for this?
Yes.
I'm not even sure that you need it, but anyhow, let's leave that.
What do you mean, Safari?
He uses Safari as a browser. I'm not sure that you need it, but anyhow. You don't have Skype opener, right?
Nothing else.
Okay.
Skype or antivirus or things like that can be in the background.
Right, no other program.
Okay. Benjamin, I'm going to take us a little... Daniel Jakubowicz just joined us, so let's give him the chance to get his equipment together, and then we're going to listen to a rendition of I Wanna Be Like Osama, and the I Wanna Be Like Osama that we have here is let me see if
maybe Benjamin, you can repeat what you just said, because I couldn't hear it about.
Of course.
Yeah.
I was joking with my uncle about the worst possible musical that could be written, and we decided that Jihad, the musical, was a terrible idea, and so we laughed and laughed and laughed. And I told a friend of mine about this, and her name's Zoe Samuel. And together we wrote a song that weekend called I Wanna Be Like Osama.
Yeah.
okay.
And really did our best to sort of find humor in that which otherwise would have no humor.
Okay. Hi, Daniel.
And
it's good
the
to
song
have you
became
here
part
with
of
us.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Daniel
Yeah,
just joined us from Barcelona, so hi, Daniel.
Hi, Daniel.
Hello, Daniel from Barcelona.
Hello, everybody. I'm glad to be with you and listen to you.
Okay, so you said you
Glad
and
to have you
Zoe,
here.
you and Zoe sat down to write the most hilarious dramatic piece ever, Jihad the musical.
We set out to write something that would never get produced.
Okay, which is
That's
the right
good.
formula to get a real bestseller. Okay, we're going to test your terrible taste by listening to I Wanna Be Like Osama. I'm going to mute everybody so that we don't have an echo. And okay, so here we are. Mute all, mute myself. Here we go.
I wanna be like Osama. I wanna bomb a path to fame across the earth. I know people may abhor me, but by God they won't ignore me when the CIA determines what I'm worth. I will delegate the killing to the malleable and willing, but be sure to have top billing when the news gets around. Please make me like Osama be. I'll be Islamically renowned. I wanna be like Osama. I want a plum, allure, and flair that can convince. If I hadn't been so rowdy, they'd have let me stay in Saudi, but I couldn't play the big leagues as a prince. So I film eloquent reminders that the Yanks have yet to find us, though we're happy to attack them on home ground. Please make me like like Osama be. I'll be Islamically renowned, and they will speak of me throughout history. Oh, what bliss to be Al-Mansur. I'll enact my plan, be the boogeyman with a brand new holy war. I wanna be like Osama. I wanna wear designer clothes beneath a robe. While my lackeys loom like vultures, I'll declare a clash of cultures, kill civilians by the millions round the globe. Grow a beard down to my navel, conquer YouTube, get on cable, and be wealthier than any man I know. Please make me like Osama be, with an Al Jazeera show. Who could ask for more, to be 6'4"? Oh, the name Mansour will be known, and I won't be missed on the wanted list with a jihad of my own. Yes, a jihad of my own. I wanna be like Osama. I want celebrity and riches that astound. Please make me like Osama be. I'll be Islamically renowned. I'll be Islamically renowned.
Okay. So this was I Want to Be Like Osama. Benjamin, what happened between the idea when you sat down with your uncle and the moment that the curtain opened up and Jihad the musical was there in front of you? Was it still part of you?
It was a lot of rewriting that happened.
Okay.
One of the things I've come to learn. Can you hear?
Yes, yes.
Can you hear?
It's much
Yeah.
better now.
One of the things that. Great. So the show opened in 2007 at the Edinburgh Fringe Festival, and began writing it in winter, in January or February, I suppose, of 2005. So it was 2.5 years of rewriting. And when I say rewriting, I mean we had to develop the story as well as the script, the story as well as the script as well as the score. And so the first thing we did was work out, well, who would sing a song like I Want to Be Like Osama? And it's obviously a terrorist middle manager who's not quite at the top of his level, and he doesn't want to go kill himself. He wants to delegate the killing to the malleable and willing, but be sure to have top billing. And so we thought, all right, well, what's an appropriate counterpart for him? We thought, well, what about a news reporter who doesn't want to stop the big bombing when she finds out about it? She wants to film it because she's a sensationalist. And so we wrote her character, and then we wrote the youngster who gets embroiled and entangled in the center of this. He's a young fellow called Saeed. He's from Jalalabad. And Saeed wants to grow flowers. The trouble is he gets caught in the middle of this terrorist network, and he's brainwashed and told he should become a terrorist, and he has to decide whether or not he's going to do it. And so we had to come up with the nuances of our story, the nuances of our characters, and we wrote songs like Building a Bomb Today and The Unidentified Very Prestigious Landmark. The show, we made that YouTube video that you and I just watched. And the week that we put it on YouTube, Osama bin Laden himself put a new video on YouTube. And when you searched Osama on YouTube, simply by coincidence of the algorithm, our video came up first.
Because yours is the real Osama.
And suddenly, the satire took on a much greater weight. We weren't simply messing about in our rooms writing songs. We were making fun of the scariest person in the world, and he knew about it. And
this is scary.
And it gave a great sense of of worth to me as a songwriter. I mean, I was asked when the show went to Edinburgh and when the show went to London, all sorts of questions about politics and political philosophy. And I'm not a political philosopher. I'm a songwriter. I'm a humorist. I'm a storyteller. And my job is to find something that I want to talk about or something that I want to make fun of and talk about it or make fun of it. And my tools are music and words and rhythm and costumes. And that's why we had the pink burqas, because we thought that was funny. And there wasn't an overarching larger political point other than if you do stuff that we think is stupid, we're going to make fun of you for it.
Okay. I'm not going to go into...
Can I say something, Dan? It's interesting.
Of course.
I just wanted to say to Benjamin that in a way today there are like heroes and then anti-heroes. It's like something more very postmodern to be the anti-hero is very successful post the hero, but I think that the most difficult is the way you put yourself, because you are just making a kind of in between. There is a kind of new category between the anti-hero and the hero, and it's most difficult to find yourself making fun of somebody that many people think he is an hero, and you are trying to work on the other part, but nobody really believes that you can become an anti-hero with this person. So I think it's a good place in between, and it makes you also very political, even if you say that you are not, but it is.
Thank you, Daniel. One thing that I like to do as an artist is work with contradictions, work with two things that don't necessarily seem to make any sense together, two disparate ingredients. And one of the premises of Jihad, the musical, was in fact people singing about how they wanted to destroy the Western world using traditional Western music. In this case, using the themes and vocabulary of writers like Gershwin or Cole Porter or Leonard Bernstein, and to use those pieces of vocabulary to sing about how they wanted to destroy that which gave us those pieces of vocabulary was, to me, very funny.
Yeah, it is. It's a very good place to put it.
Benjamin, let's let's talk about the media that you chose for Osama, and the media that you actually came to visit a little bit later. I'm talking about the musical. Let's try to define the difference between musical, opera, musical theater, musical on its own. There are so many little differences. How do you see a musical? What is a musical?
Very good question, one I've thought about a great deal. To me, a musical is a play with songs in it at poignant moments, sung by one or more characters for the purpose of higher expression. And when I say songs, I mean the person who wrote the songs wrote, quite specifically, a lead sheet. He wrote the melody and the lyric, or if it's a team, they wrote it together, and the chords. And then an orchestrator orchestrated the music. Whereas in an opera, for the most part, the arias are as important musically and orchestrally and arrangement-based than the melodic line itself is. In opera, the music is very, very important, where I do think oftentimes in a musical, the lyrics get a little bit more importance to them, historically at least.
Mm-hmm. When I was a kid and my grandmother insisted on taking me to opera, I lived very well with the classical concerts that she took me to. Opera was kind of funny, but for the operas I fell in love with, like Rigoletto. I mean, I couldn't have enough of this father who kills his daughter. I mean, how much more fun can you have but killing your daughter instead of killing your son-in-law or the Duke? So, but what always kind of made me feel strange are the old type of opera singing and presentation where the guy dies and then it takes him 75 minutes to finish the song. And while he's finishing the song, the poor guy cannot die. So he has to wait until the song finishes. Right. How does it work in a musical? Do you die in musicals?
Well, let's see. Death songs in a musical. Well, in Jihad, we had everybody blow themselves up, and then we for a while we had a song which we eventually cut from the show. It was called "Burning Away in Hell," and they sang from hell. So that allowed us to both kill them quickly and give them another chance to sing. Goodness. What famous death musical? The musicals that I have written, I try not to have people take too long to die. It tends to be explosive and quick.
Okay. Well, in one of the apex of musicals, West Side Story. Of course, there's always the excuse that you're using the works of the bard, and there's no way that you can keep both Romeo and Juliet alive, so you have to kill them. And the music builds up very nicely to the kill, and the killing itself, or the dying, not the killing, but the dying itself is very dramatic, much more dramatic than it is in Romeo and Juliet, where more than drama you have the sense of stupid waste, which is completely lost in Lenny Bernstein's musical opera, whatever we want to call it. I'm going to take us now to Damian Runyon, who wrote those incredible stories about the underworld of Manhattan and New York. The underworld, as in the petty thieves, the small con man, the people who were never on time to actually commit the big thing, the big crime, and they're very fantastic characters. I mean, I must add a little curiosity here. I read Damian Runyon first of all in Hebrew, and the translation was fantastic, I must say. When I first read it in English, I said, who translated it? I mean, in Hebrew it sounds so good. And it was very good. So you asked me to start at 7:19 of Guys and Dolls. What are we going to listen to here, Benjamin?
This is Adelaide's Lament from the musical Guys and Dolls, written by Frank Lesser. It opened in 1950 in New York, and I think that Adelaide's Lament is a perfect piece of musical theater in the perfect piece of musical theater. The song that Lesser was given to write with the script was Adelaide saying, "I want to get married." That's the bit. And so she could have sung, "I want to get married, I want to get married, I really, really, really." That's not what she does. That's not what Lesser does for her. He finds the most brilliant way in to the song of Adelaide's lament, and it's only until the very last line of the song
Yes.
in which the hook is, a person can develop the last line of the song is, from a lack of community property and the feeling she's getting too old, a person can develop old. And it's only until then that funny, funny song draws you in with its charm, really hits home emotionally because you really connect with this woman and the feeling she's getting too old to get married.
Okay.
And that she's not going to be loved anymore. It's done perfectly. I love it. It lit up as a model of brilliant musical theater writing.
And she has no idea how lucky she is to grow old before she gets married, but anyhow. So I'm going to mute everybody and let you think about the stupid lines that I just said, and we'll hear a very brilliant piece of music, Frank Lasser. Who's the singer, by the way?
You know, I don't know. I'm not sure who's playing the role of Adelaide in this production.
Okay. Okay, we'll find out. Here we go. Mute everybody and myself, and here we go.
It says here, the average unmarried female, basically insecure, due to some long frustration, may react with psychosomatic symptoms, difficult to endure, affecting the upper respiratory tract. In other words, just from waiting around for that plain little band of gold, a person could develop a cold. You could spray her wherever you figure the streptococci lurk. You can give her a shot for whatever she's got, but it just won't work. If she's tired of getting that fisheye from the hotel clerk, a person can develop a cold. It says here, the female remaining single, constantly in suspense, shows a neurotic tendency. See note, note, chronic organic syndromes, toxic or hypertense, involving the eye, the ear, the nose, and throat. In other words, just from wondering whether the wedding is on or off, a person can develop a cough. You can feed her all day with the vitamin A and the bromo fizz, but the medicine never gets anywhere near where the trouble is. If she's getting a kind of a name for herself and the name ain't his, a person can develop a cough. And furthermore, just from stalling the wedding trip, a person can develop la grippe. When they get on the train for Niagara, and she can hear church bells chime, the compartment is air-conditioned, and the mood sublime. Then they get off at Yonkers racetrack for the 14th time. A person can develop la grippe, la post-nasal drip, with the wheezes, and the sneezes, and the sinus that's really a pip. From a lack of community property and a feeling she's getting too old, a person can develop a bad cold.
brilliant, brilliant, brilliant. And the way that it's acted is, what I found so outstanding in good musical theater is the timing, the rhythm, the way that you actually don't allow yourself to be led by the music, because otherwise you're just a musical instrument. And here you're a storyteller, so you allow the music to accompany you and be with you while you're telling a story. And the music is kind of a complementary to your story. And that's a very, very beautiful piece. One thing that I kind of miss in New York today, it's going to sound funny to you, but accents in New York City kind of flatten out. Here I hear this Brooklyn kind of the poison. You can't you can hardly hear it anymore in New York, no?
Well, I think there certainly isn't that great old-fashioned New York Brooklyn voice that Damon Runyon wrote so well in the stories, that Frank Lesser wrote so well in those songs. And that's one thing I think is really brilliant about his songs, is they sing the way they talk. They really sing the way they talk. And it was a huge change. Imagine that nobody had ever heard that on Broadway before. When this show came out and people saying a poison can develop a cold, nobody had ever sung like that on stage. It had been Cole Porter, where you sounded like a well-educated Yale man, no matter what character you were, the moment you started singing. And Lesser changed all that. And I have to make note of when she's getting a kind of a name for herself, and the name ain't his. That to me is just spectacular. And it shows, its subtlety shows that Adelaide is a smart lady. She's clever. And Lesser manages to get all of that in there, using the accents, using the jokes, using the language, using the complaining. And that's the kind of writing that I find really, really inspiring. And I'd like to put back on stage, is that sort of... Go on?
I wanted to say that I never saw this piece of musical, but it jumped to me like something like, in a way, everybody has a subjective lecture of things, but this is very nightmarish in the sense that it sounds like I saw like a prescription with the, with the writing of a medical doctor, that they say that you don't understand when they write something for you to use as something to be cured, and like you can't really get cured from this. It's like all the even if she wants to get married, everything is so close, the room is so close, maybe she's not getting to maybe not to, she will not marry because everything is so the virus is inside the room closed, in a way. That's my but the singing is great, and the accent is between she's with the nose. The nose is well.
Yeah, well, she's
Interesting.
She's basically suffering from bacheloritis, and she's trying to cure bacheloritis with different types of medicine, and it doesn't always work. So, but anyhow, let's keep going. What are the sounds that run around in your during your day, Benjamin? The sound that then become song, that then become words, that then become the message that you transfer to your audience. What are the sounds? Are there the sounds of the city? Are there sounds of your past, of singers? What goes on?
Well, New York is a very melodic place. It's a very noisy, very rhythmic place. And so walking down the street, I will hear jackhammers, I will hear jazz and blues and rock and rap, and people practicing their instruments coming out of doorways and windows and cars. And often I'll hear a scrap of melody which will get stuck in my head, and I'll play with it. I'll rewrite it. I'll simplify it. I'll expand it. I'll decorate it. And so I have a notebook and a pen with me at all times, and often I'll hear a scrap of melody or a rhythm on the subway or walking in Greenwich Village, and I'll write down that scrap of melody, and then I'll take it home and work it over, usually by which time my brain has turned it over and over and will have done something new with it already. Let me give an example. There's a song on the new record I just finished with my group, Escapist Papers. There's a song called "The Lion," and I had two things in my head for a while. I had the title "The Lion" in my head. I'm not really sure why. I liked the title, and then I had the melody, which is the chorus of the song, which is a very simple descending pattern, a major descending pattern that jumps up to the last note in the first phrase. Mm-hmm. And I had these two things in my head, and they weren't connected. I had the title and I had this melody, and I hadn't assumed that the melody would then fit with the title. But sitting and working through how the melody worked, I realized that it in fact was the melody that should go with this title, and that's, like I said about musicals, that most of the writing process with Jihad musical was in fact rewriting. I find certainly for standalone songs, most of the writing I do is rewriting, and if that's rewriting a snippet of the I heard walking down West 4th Street, or tweaking the lyric that I've been working on for 6 months, the rewriting process often allows me to bring in pieces that I came up with while strolling around New York and seemed to be orphan lyrics or orphan melodies.
I'm going to have us listen to a guy who for me is the breathing being of the late 1990s, the early years 2000, and he stands for me for a bridge between what was before and what came with him and after him. I'm not sure that you agree with me, but Eminem for me is a leading bridge over, the complete black rapper and the white rapper, and this sense of insecure. When I listen to Eminem, it brings a sense of insecurity into me. It's something evil is happening, something not that I find difficult to relate to. So let's listen to him. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. Eminem is a tremendous storyteller, and the characters that he brings into stories are ones that really hadn't been heard in hip-hop, at least in mainstream hip-hop, until he put out his first record in 1998. Now, I remember where I was when I first heard the first track of his that I'd ever heard. It was My Fault from his first record. And it's not a standard hip-hop fare of robbing people or sleeping with beautiful women. It's a story about a nerdy white guy who goes to a party with two of his friends, tries to impress a girl who will have overdosing on drugs, and he doesn't know what to do. And it's funny as anything I've ever heard, and it's so clever. And when you actually listen to what's happening, it's this devastating, horrible story that it's a bit like a Flannery O'Connor story or a Raymond Carver story. He's showing these parts of America that really don't get seen, and I think he really did a huge amount. I think you're absolutely right to bridge a gap of certain stories to certain audiences.
Okay, so As If by Magic. We do have My Fault here by Eminem. I first heard it sometime in the late 1990s. You said it came out in 1998, so it must be around that time. So again, I'm going to mute everybody and we'll listen to it and then we'll go on. I'll mute myself.
I never meant to give you mushrooms, girl. I never meant to bring you to my world. But now you're sitting in the corner crying, and now it's my fault, my fault. I never meant to give you mushrooms, girl. I never meant to bring you to my world. But now you're sitting in the corner crying, and now it's my fault, my fault. I went to John's rave with Ron and Dave, and met a new wave blonde babe with half of her head shaved. A nurse aide who came to get laid and tied up with first aid tape and raped on the first date. Susan, the next heroin addict who just stopped using. Who loved booze and alternative music. Told me she was going back into using again. I said, wait, first try this hallucinogen. It's better than heroin, here in the bruise and the gin. Come here, let's go in here. Who's in the den? Me and Kelly. My bad, let's try another room. I don't trust you. Shut up, slut, chew up this mushroom. This'll help you get in touch with your roots. We'll get barefoot, butt naked and run in the woods.
Oh hell, I might as well try him. This party is so drag.
Oh dang, I ain't mean for you to eat the whole bag. I never meant to give you mushrooms, girl. I never meant to bring you to my world. But now you're sitting in the corner crying, and now it's my fault, my fault.
I'm sorry.
I never meant to give you mushrooms, girl. I never meant to bring you to my world. But now you're sitting in the corner crying, and now it's my fault, my fault. Yo, Sue,
Get away from me. I don't know you.
oh shoot, she's tripping.
I need to go pew.
I wasn't trying to turn this into something major. I just wanted to make you appreciate nature. Susie, stop crying, I don't hate ya. The world's not against you, I'm sorry your father raped ya. So what you had your little coochie in your dad's mouth? That ain't no reason to start wigging and spaz out. She said,
Help me, I think I'm having a seizure.
I said I'm high too, bitch, quit grabbing my t-shirt.
Let go.
Would you calm down, you're starting to scare me. She said,
I'm 26 years old and I'm not married. I don't even have any kids and I can't cook.
I'm over here, Sue, you're talking to the plant. Look, we need to get to a hospital before it's too late. Cause I never seen anyone eat as many shrooms as you ate. I never meant to give you mushrooms, girl.
What?
I never meant to bring you to my world. But now you're sitting in the corner crying, and now it's my fault, my fault.
It's an accident.
I never meant to give you mushrooms, girl. I never meant to bring you to my world. But now you're sitting in the corner crying, and now it's my fault, my fault. Susan,
Wait.
where you going? You better be careful.
Leave me alone, Dad. I'm sick of getting my hair pulled.
I'm not your dad. Quit trying to swallow your tongue. Want some gum? Put down the scissors before you do something dumb. I'll be right back. Just chill, baby, please. I gotta go find Dave. He's the one who gave me these. John, where's Dave at before I bash you?
He's in the bathroom. I think he's taking a crap, dude.
Dave, pull up your pants. We need an ambulance. There's a girl upstairs talking to plants, chopping her hair off. And there's only 2 days left of spring break. How long do these things take to wear off?
Well, it depends on how many you had.
I took 3. She ate the other 22 cats. Now she's upstairs crying out her eyeballs, drinking Lysol.
She's gonna die, dude.
I know, and it's my fault.
My
I never meant to give you mushrooms, girl. I never meant to bring you to my world.
Sorry.
But now you're sitting in the corner crying, and now it's my fault, my fault.
What do?
I never meant to give you mushrooms, girl. I never meant to bring you to my world. But now you're sitting in the corner crying, and now it's my fault, my fault.
My God, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. Susan, please wake up. Please. Please wake up. What are you doing? You're not dead. You're not dead. I know you're not dead. Wake up. Susan, wake up.
Well, that's a song that takes you over a very, very large scope and allows you at one moment to kind of, not really have fun, but kind of sit back and say, look at those losers, they're all playing games and nothing good or nothing bad is going to happen. It's just going to be another song of those where, you know, they talk about drugs, and all of a sudden becomes reality. It becomes something that you can feel it, you can smell it, you can you want to hold them, and you want to make it up to them, and it's one of the very few rappers that actually confesses to weakness. You know, there's no macho in this. The whole thing is a human being being stripped of a lot of masks and becoming real. And the real, obviously, is not macho. And is Eminem somebody you listen to a lot?
Eminem. For me, what Frank Lesser is doing and what Eminem is doing are the same thing. They're both tremendous characterists. They create incredibly visceral characters as writers, characters who are simultaneously charming and incredibly obnoxious and have both likable and dislikable things about them. I suppose when we were speaking earlier about contradictions within a piece of art, I think both Frank Lesser and Eminem managed to do this incredibly expertly. I do listen to Eminem a lot. I think in addition to being a wonderful writer of character, he's also a brilliant performer. I'll note that he played the two main characters in that piece seamlessly, and there was no question of which role he was playing, and they each had different vocabulary, they each had different intonation, they each had different intentions, and he did it without any, it's absolutely seamlessly, and he really does that all across his writing. And I think you pointed something really fascinating out that I agree with, Dan. There's not a lot of macho because he's writing from the perspective of character, and if macho gets in the way of his telling a better, truer, or more human story, he'll disregard it in the favor of better art.
Mm-hmm. And also, it's a song that starts off with a heartbeat and finishes off where the heartbeat becomes stronger and stronger, and you really want to reach out and give him a hand because he's crying, and the voice disappears and the heartbeats become stronger and stronger, which is very, it's very dramatic. It's very and it's dramatic without telling the dramatic, okay, oh my God, you're not dying, come on. But he's not saying it in a cold way. He's saying it because you believe him. You believe, and you see Susan dying, and the guy's crying because he's got nothing left to do. So it's a very strong performance. And in this, the music again plays the role of milestones. The music, more than tells its own story, kind of leads us from one milestone to the other. We're always waiting for the it's more or less un ritornello, as they say in opera. In other words, where the guy repeats the same I'm sorry, but so you wait for that, and it gives you the dramatic pause, but actually the action then takes over, and the dramatic pause is no more, and it's all reality. And I was going to ask you, when you write, what happens first? The story, the music, the rhythm? Terrible question, isn't it?
Not a terrible question. The story, the music, the rhythm, those are all wonderful tools from which to begin. Usually in a piece of musical theater, we'll have the script with just dialogue, and we'll realize we'd like to turn one of the scenes into a song. So we already have the story, so that's great. And we'll usually come up with a hook, meaning the title of the song. If it's a character singing about something he wants or something that's in the way of, or someone they love, and how are they going to get them, we'll come up with a title, and then often I'll go write a melody that seems to suit this desire. And then either I, or if I'm writing it collaboratively, my writing partner and I will pillage the scene and take lyrics from the scene and put them onto the melody to turn it into a song. And that way, the characters speak in their own voices, which is something I really find to be important, just as Lesser does it and just as Eminem does it. The vocabulary and voice of the character is important, and so if it comes directly from the script, you can pretty much guarantee they're going to talk like themselves. Also, if a song is furthering the action, if it's from the script, it's not going to be a pause. It's going to be a momentous piece of theater, and so that's something I like. I like the songs to be based in character and to drive the action. And that's if it's in a piece of theater. When I wrote my new record with my group Escapist Papers, oftentimes I would sit down with a guitar and start working on a melody and lyric together.
What do you
And
mean
once
together?
I knew-
What do you mean together?
I would sit and sing something to myself. I would have, Dan Scheuer is the host of U-Sophia. That melody makes sense to me. The words have a natural cadence, which give them a natural melody. In Frank Lesser's writing in Guys and Dolls, all of the melodies follow the natural speech, from a lack of community property and the feeling she's getting too old. A person can develop a cold. That's how you talk. A person can develop a cold. That's the shape of the words. And so I like melodies that follow the shape of words. Now, once I've written a melody and a lyric together, Dan Scheuer is the host of U-Sophia, I can then sit and say, well, what is it I actually want to say? And if I realize that the song isn't actually about Dan Scheuer as the host of U-Sophia, but I realize that the song is actually about the Hudson River and how it's becoming too polluted or something, I'll then sit and work with a rhyme dictionary, or I'll work with to try and plug the right rhymes in for every word and try and shape the story I want to tell. Oftentimes I'll write it out in prose first. I'll write a short story of this is the story I'd like to tell. And then I'll fit it to the melody that I already have structurally. And then I'll work within that structure to get all the right rhymes in the right place, so the words then follow the natural cadence of the melody. Sometimes I'll write from a rhythm. Sometimes I'll have a backing track. I'll come up with a backing track that I like the sound of, and I'll ad-lib melodies over it or ad-lib lyrics over it. Every way you suggested is a valuable and useful tool for composing, and I am happy to use all tools at my disposal.
It's quite amazing. I have no idea how you actually found out or understood that U-Sophia actually started off as a distillery. We wanted to clean up the Hudson River, and I used to sit here and host meetings with different vermins that were in the Hudson River. I was trying to bring them out of the river and have them listen to, philosophical, listen sometimes to Proust, listen sometimes to Ulysses. And it was not until I had them sit back and listen to Eddie Van Halen that I actually got them to really be the kind of audience I wanted in U-Sophia. So you tell us a little bit about what we're going to listen to now, and this is an eruption. And the eruption happened right before I've decided that I'm not going to try and clean up the Hudson River. So tell us about the eruption.
Eddie Van Halen, age 21 years old in 1978. Second track on the first Van Halen record. Eddie Van Halen changed guitar forever. He changed the way the electric guitar was played, the way it was understood. He made noises nobody had ever made with it before. I was 6 years old when I heard this piece of music, and I remember exactly where I was. I was driving down the Boston Post Road in New York, and on the radio came Eddie Van Halen playing Eruption, and I'd never heard anything like it. And for the better part of my childhood and teenage years, I wanted to play guitar like Eddie Van Halen. I wanted to make sounds nobody had ever heard. And so this, Van Halen's Eruption, is, for the most part, a solo guitar piece. There's a little bit of drums, courtesy of Eddie's brother Alex Van Halen, and a little bit of bass from Michael Anthony. And it's a pretty extraordinary piece of musical virtuosity.
Well, here comes the time to tell a little secret, well-kept secret. I was 27 actually, when I heard it for the first time. And I was driving back on a Friday afternoon. We were shooting Moses the Lawgiver with Burt Lancaster and Ingrid Thulin and many other famous actors, and we were down in Sinai. We were shooting the separation of the Red Sea, and this was a Friday, and I decided, as we were going on to the Yom Kippur, the Day of Atonement, long weekend, I decided that I was going to take a car and drive back to Haifa. I was living at Haifa at the time, although I wasn't living in Israel anymore, but I still had a house in Haifa. So I was driving up with a friend of mine, and we were getting drunk most of the time. We had different bottles of vodka and cognac, and we had a little grass and a little stuff, and we were listening to music all the time. And then at one point we stopped for this incredibly strange creature, which turned out to be a beautiful girl who was hitchhiking back from the Sinai desert to civilization or whatever. And she said, "No, put this on the radio. Don't listen to those old, we were listening to Cat Stevens and Bob Dylan and stuff like that. So no, put something on the radio. Let's see what the radio has to." And then what did we hear? Eruption. It was just before I got to Haifa and was informed that a war broke out. And so just before the war broke out, we were listening to the Eruption. And I then, after the war, went and bought the CD, the 33 RPMs. It wasn't a CD at that time. So this is my story. 20 years after you did it. Oh, no, we did it at the same time, only 20 years, the difference between you and I. It's more than that, actually. It's close. It's more than 30.
First heard it in 19...
it was 72 when
I heard it in 88.
Ah, okay. No, I heard it.
So 10 years after it was released.
Yeah. So I heard it about a year probably after it was released. And I still have 30 odd years on you, so anyhow, so here we are following an eruption that changed the way guitars were sounding, changed the way the respect, the connection to a guitar was. And then I think, in a way, correct me if I'm wrong, Eddie kind of paved the way to the huge eruption that happened with during the years of people like Iron Butterfly, and where the guitar started talking, and the guitar was no longer a musical instrument; it was a partner of the singer. And so let's erupt with the eruptions. I'm going to mute everybody again, and myself. What is the connection, you think, between what Eddie did and what the other guitar mavericks, the guitar prophets of the era did? You know, people like, obviously, what comes to mind immediately is, on one hand, the tradition of Django Reinhardt, who was all guitar, all tune, and then on the other hand, as I said before, you know, the Iron Butterfly and Jimi Hendrix.
One thing that Hendrix did that Eddie really followed in the step of was used the technologies available to him to develop new techniques and ultimately create different sonic worlds. Jimi Hendrix used what's known as wah-wah pedal and another pedal known as a fuzz box, which were two new inventions. And around 1967, 66 and 67, he used these to create sounds nobody had ever heard. He similarly used what's known as now known as a whammy bar, but was then known as a tremolo arm, which slackened the strings of a guitar to lower the pitch of them. Now, Eddie Van Halen developed a kind of system for an electric guitar whereby the tremolo arm could be much more extreme. In fact, the reason that a tremolo arm is now called a whammy bar is because Eddie Van Halen named the tremolo arm the whammy bar.
Wow.
On the piece we just heard, Eruption, Eddie used two particular pieces of equipment, one called an echoplex, which creates the feedback of sounds, and one called a phaser, which takes the sound wave, doubles it, and then shifts it upon itself so it starts to cancel itself out in different, in a way that creates overtones.
Mm-hmm.
Now, that's just the sound of the instrument. What he did to really further the technique of the guitar is he used something called two-handed tapping, which is whereby you play the guitar fretboard as if it was a piano, and you hit the strings like this. Now, nobody had ever done that to the same degree. Jimmy Page had used his right hand to fret the strings as you would a capo. But for whatever reason, nobody had ever thought to play the fretboard like a piano, and that's what Eddie Van Halen did. And so for me, as a young guitar player, I came up studying music through playing the guitar. I was so inspired by these sounds that sounded like three people. It sounded like a piano. Eddie sounded on the guitar the way somebody did when playing Rachmaninoff or Paganini. And it's no surprise that Eddie Van Halen himself was a serious classical pianist, an award-winning classical pianist as a young fellow. And he could hear something and play it. And I was really inspired to try and generate these kinds of sounds from my guitar, both sonically using the effects pedals, using wah-wah pedals, using a flanger, a phaser, all these things that manipulate the sound, and also using techniques with my hands, playing the guitar as a piano or using a whammy bar, trying to generate different noises from the instruments. And this for me was a means of expression when I ultimately realized that I wanted to add words to the expression that I wanted to share. And I realized that songwriting was for me a stronger mode of expression. I played less electric guitar and more acoustic guitar, and the music that I played became a lot simpler and more in support of the storytelling, much like the Eminem track that we listened to. It's quite repeating patterns or rhythmical patterns rather than counter melodies or disharmonic ideas to get in the way. I wanted to create a foundation.
I want to, I'm not sure that I'll find it exactly, but there's a passage here that for me is something that Eddie took out from Scarlatti. We're going back, way back. Let me see if I can find it. I mean, it's incredible. It's like listening to Horowitz playing Scarlatti, obviously on a electric guitar with everything else, but the sound itself. I mean, the music, the tune itself is pure Scarlatti. I mean, it's a scale. It's what he does,
Yeah.
and he overlays the scale, which you don't do normally on a guitar, and
Yeah.
so. Way to go. I would like to bring us to the bridge. This time, the bridge is your last effort, the last one that came out, the last CD. Tell us a little bit about the Escapist Papers, which is the name.
Escapist
Are you
Papers.
familiar with Dave Barry?
Sure, the comedy writer from Miami.
Dave Barry always comes out with the Corner of the Table, which is a very good name for a rock group. So Escapist Papers must be something that Dave Barry would find a fantastic name for.
Do you know that Dave Barry had actually has a rock band called Federal Duck?
I mean, with his main dog and his accessory.
And the backup
And the
dog.
backup, how does he call it? The auxiliary dog.
Auxiliary.
The auxiliary dog.
Auxiliary dog. Yeah, well, I didn't know
I
that.
realize I need to. I'm going to plug in my computer, so I'm going to ask my dear brother to bring me a cable. Adam, are you there? He's not there. Oh well. If I start to run out of juice, I will. I'll plug it in when next we listen to something. But I'll tell you a bit about the bridge.
Yes, please.
The new record from my band, Escapist Papers. So Escapist Papers is a project that I began. I write the songs and I sing and play the guitar, and we've just finished the second record of the group. The second record's called The Bridge, and it's 8 tracks, and it's all downloadable for free at the band's website at escapistpapers.com.
Why for free, Benjamin?
And I want everybody anywhere to be able to hear this music. Music, as far as I'm concerned, because the digital file floats around in the East, is free. When I was in college, Napster began, and we would download files for free. And I'm happy for people to take the record, and if they enjoy it and they'd like to come to a performance, then that's great. I would welcome them to buy a ticket. And I'm also, I'll be selling the vinyl of the record at performances. And it's beautiful artwork done by Leah Strasser and Raya Lerner. Both Leah and Raya are wonderful New York-based artists. And there are the lyrics inside to the 8 songs on the record. And it's a record that deals with difficult situations with a sense of hopefulness. It deals with the death of my father. My father died just before I turned 14. And it talks about a relationship I was in, a long relationship, romantic relationship that ended in quite a difficult way. That's a song called Julia, Julia, and a song called Invisible Cities. And then last year, I was diagnosed, treated for, and cured of advanced stage cancer. And this all happened while I was in the middle of recording what I thought was the complete record. There were 7 songs at the time, and I found it to be a great solace in between the 6 months of interspersed during the 6 months of chemotherapy that I underwent, to go to the recording studio and work on this record, which had begun as a fun, joyful project and then became quite seriously what possibly could have been, and luckily wasn't, the last thing that I did. And I had in my head the title for a song called The Lion, and I was just reading my journal that I kept all through last year, 2011, during my chemotherapy, and I came upon the entry which said, I'd like to write a song called The Lion. And it was in the middle of something else. I think I must have just thought of it and then went back. And then the week of my last chemotherapy, I had it once every 2 weeks for 6 months, so 12 doses in total. The week of, when I was feeling, I had a bit of energy, I went to the Bronx Zoo and I saw the lions. And I love lions. I love the animal. I love their grace and composure and how beautiful they are. And the day before my last chemotherapy, that day I would spend the mornings by myself trying to compose my own mind. The day before, the day of, rather, my last chemotherapy, I sat down with a guitar on West 10th Street, between 5th and 6th Avenue. Sat down on the street. It was a tree-lined street. It's pretty quiet. And I took out my notebook and a guitar, and I sat writing for about 3 hours and wrote a draft of a song called The Lion, and worked on it, got some really good help from some friends of mine who, interestingly enough, 3 of them independently offered me the same suggestions. And I know when more than one person offers the same suggestion that they're probably right. And so I wrote this song about being ill and getting better, and I finished it after I found out that I had in fact been cured of cancer. and I wrote it about my family and how they had undergone difficult things, different generations of my family. My mother's father had died, and my father had died. And ultimately it was my brothers and my mother who came together to help me get through this difficult circumstance. And so there's my little, I was given this by my younger brother Simon. That's my little lion, my little guy. And so that's the last song on the record. It's called The Lion. The whole record's available for free at escapistpapers.com, and that's about all I have to say about that for now.
Benjamin, I would like to suggest that the next time you want to write music for CD, why don't you go on a kind of a strange diet, or become a Zen Buddhist? Don't go all the way into chemotherapy. I mean, I know it's a great adventure, but maybe you don't want to go that far out, you know.
That's good advice. That's good advice for anyone listening. Change one's diet or maybe go on a trip. I don't recommend chemotherapy if given the option. Oh, so it's made my hair go curly. Can you see that? Oh, God, it was curly before, Dan.
Yeah. Anyhow, I just want to tell everybody, both people that are in the room and people that will be listening to the recording, a day after we landed in New York City, this last trip, Nira and I were invited by Robin the Stag Hirsch, who is this outstanding, incredible character, one of the last hosts, one of the last gorgeous hosts who can make everybody who comes to visit his lair, his castle that is hidden in Cornelia Street, he makes everybody seem to be the answer of the prayers of humanity, the answers of the prayer of humanity for something new, something good, something. And so we are in that salon, the way he calls it, and says, well, we're going to have some people that are surprised. I didn't know that they were going to be here. And then he presents this guy who, he says, I just met this guy. I don't know too much about him. And the guy comes, sits, takes his guitar out, and all of a sudden we are in the jungle, and there are cubs riding around, and we find out what it means to actually be an untamed lion on stage with a guitar, but with no masks. Everything is real. Everything is happening now. So I'm going to mute everybody, and we'll listen to the lion.
When my mother still was young, her father died from too much wine. His parents both were hunted in the jungle. She moved into the city. In her 20s met my father. He courted her, they fell in love and married. On a Tuesday, April morning, his brilliant brain stopped working. My brother's mom and I all sat round crying, when it occurred to me that I'd do well to lead our little pride. And so I tried to find my roar and be a lion. I always show my teeth and I am smiling. I only say I love you when I'm sure. Inside my gentle paws I've got some devastating claws, and I'm learning what it means to really roar. To protect them from the storm, keep them safe and keep them warm. Music was the fire that I shared. Taught me when in fear to be open and sincere, because sometimes being brave is being scared. At the the risk of getting burned. I tried to guide the bride to learn to find their own ideas of fire and fan the flame. With other stuff to do and see, they left the music all to me. The things that made us lions were not the same. I always show my teeth and I am smiling. I only say I love you when I'm sure. Inside my gentle paws I've got some devastating claws, and I'm learning what it means to really roar. When all the cubs grew up and we were spread around the earth, I found one day that I'd grown very sick. My bones were filled with holes, my belly hung in rolls, and I was bald where once my mane was thick. I slept and was ashamed, I was quiet, I was tamed. Then they came and stayed and helped me heal inside. Though I had to learn once more to be a lion without a roar. It's not the roar that makes the lion, it's the pride. I always show my teeth and I am smiling. I only say I love you when I'm sure. Inside my gentle paws I've got some devastating claws, and I'm learning what it means to really roar. I only show my teeth when I am smiling. I only say I love you when I'm sure. Inside my gentle paws I've got some devastating claws, and I'm learning what it means to really roar.
So it's not the roar that makes a lion, it's the pride. That's
So wonderful story. Amazing.
it's it brings us, at least it does me, to just keep listening to it again and again, because first it takes me out of, you know, what you always do when you sit and listen to somebody for the first time. Yeah, curious you are, but basically you're trying to keep to yourself. You don't want to open up too fast and to be overwhelmed with what is happening. And what happened to me first time I listened to you, Benjamin, you took my defenses away, and you kind of squeezed yourself in between my defenses, and all of a sudden I was completely bare. I was laid bare to a straightforward story that you know, happened to be sad, but above being sad, it was so human. It was so that it grabbed me, and I just found no way to run. And the first thing I did when I got home is I looked it up, and I found it on the internet. So the same night we played it, Nira and I, again and again and again in the hotel room, which made it, of course, much sadder than being out in the jungle. But still, this song is is doing it to me. So Benjamin, I always like to end our conversations with a taste of more. What's next on the agenda?
I'm going to go and tour this record, play the songs for people in a room, and what I think I'd like to do with it, and the way I think I'd most like to present the songs, is by taking the things that I love, storytelling, musical theater, and self-expression, and I suppose exposure, and create a piece, a set, if you will, that integrates storytelling in the songs that I've written, many of which are on this album, the bridge, some of which aren't on the record, some of which are new, and doing a piece of autobiographical one-man musical theater and telling stories. And I'm going to be at Cornelius Street Cafe on the 17th of October. It's Wednesday evening. At 9 p.m., I'm going to do the current draft that I have of this show. And on the 11th of October, I'm going to be playing Lion. Thursday, the 11th of October, I'm going to be playing the Lion at Merkin Hall, up by the Kaufman Center in New York City, right by Lincoln Center. And it's Evening of Songwriters, all of whom are really wonderful. It's called the Johnny Mercer Foundation. I was lucky enough to be a songwriter, a fellow of the Mercer Foundation. And then this evening, I'm going back to the Cornelius Street Cafe in 15 minutes, in fact, and I'm going to play another song off of the album, the song that helped me get to the Lion. It was a song called Julia, Julia, and it was a piece of similarly autobiographical storytelling. It's a smaller scope. It's about a romantic relationship, but the style of writing is similar in its sort of nakedness. And so I'm going to go to the Cornelius Street Cafe, and I'm going to do it all over again, Dan. I'm going to tell my story as best I know how, and hope that people find some joy in it.
Okay, well, I'm launching a call here from U-Sophia. I would like to host a small production of a couple of your biographical one-man shows, and produce something on U-Sophia for our media in such a way that we can reach out and, you know, be a showcase for the world with a very special young writer, creator, Benjamin Scheuer, a very special voice, a voice which is, yes, the voice of New York City of always. It's not New York City of today or of yesterday. It's really of New York City of always. I can find images of Billy Joel, of John Denver, and of everything else, but really what I find more than anything else is Benjamin Scheuer. And lovely having met you, and thank you very much for being with us here. And if it's okay with everybody, I'm going to end our evening with Benjamin by listening to the line again. Is that okay?
It is a great pleasure, Dan. Thank you so much for having me. Thanks.
Thanks, Benjamin.
Thank you, Benjamin.
For tuning in.
We're having connection problems. We're having connection problems, Benjamin.
Here, those of you who I don't, everybody have.
Benjamin, you'll have to say it all over again.
You said probably.
Can you hear me?
Now we can hear you.
Yeah.
Yes, now we can hear you.
I said, well, since we're having connection trouble, I would offer humbly that people go, if they would wish to hear it again, go to escapistpapers.com. They can download the whole record or individual songs for free. And do come back to U-Sophia. It's a wonderful place. Dan, thank you so much for having me this evening, and thank you, everybody. Have a great night.
Thank you, and here we are with the Lion, and again, you're all welcome to go to the Escapist Papers, download the whole album, where you have the bridge and Julia, Julia, and the Lion is the last song on it, song number 8. Here we go again. Good night, everybody, and thank you for being with us here at U-Sophia, where minds meet online. The recording of this evening will be on YouTube starting tomorrow. Again, thank you very much. Bye.
When my mother still was young, her father died from too much wine. His parents both were hunted in the jungle. She moved into the city. In her 20s, met my father. He courted her, they fell in love and married. On a Tuesday, April morning, his brilliant brain stopped working. My brother's mom and I all sat round crying, when it occurred to me that I'd do well to lead our little pride. And so I tried to find my roar and be a lion. I always show my teeth and I am smiling. I only say I love you when I'm sure. Inside my gentle paws I've got some devastating claws, and I'm learning what it means to really roar. To protect them from the storm, keep them safe and keep them warm. Music was the fire that I shared. It taught me when in fear to be open and sincere, because sometimes being brave is being scared. At the risk of getting burned, I try to guide the bride to learn to find their own ideas of fire and fan the flame. With other stuff to do and see, they left the music all to me. The things that made us lions were not the same. I always show my teeth and I am smiling. I only say I love you when I'm sure. Inside my gentle paws I've got some devastating claws, and I'm learning what it means to really roar. When all the cubs grew up and we were spread around the earth, I found one day that I'd grown very sick. My bones were filled with holes, my belly hung in rolls, and I was bald where once my mane was thick. I slept and was ashamed, I was quiet, I was tamed. Then they came and stayed and helped me heal inside. Though I had to learn once more to be a lion without a roar. It's not the roar that makes the lion, it's the pride. I always show my teeth and I am smiling. I only say I love you when I'm sure. Inside my gentle paws I've got some devastating claws, and I'm learning what it means to really roar. I always show my teeth when I am smiling. I only say I love you when I'm sure. Inside my gentle paws I've got some devastating claws, and I'm learning what it means to really roar.
Good night, everybody, and thank you for being with us.